A very good afternoon to all of you, ladies and gentlemen, who are joining us here in India, others who are waking up in the West, or those who are calling it a day in the East of the world. We are really discussing today a topic, which is I have a dream for India at 100, innovation, imagination, investment. How do we make India at 100, or the India of 2047, where India will probably have the prominent spot as the R&D hub of the world. And as we are discussing this and looking at how India's position in the world will get defined over the next 25 years, we could not have had anybody better than Dr. Mashelkar to be here with us. He's someone who really needs no introduction. He's someone who has really put, I think, the Indian scientists on the global map over several decades through his leadership role in multiple aspects, both on the global stage, with academic institutions, with corporates, with the creation of scientific institutions that have strongly, built IPR systems around the world, that has, really created inclusive innovation as a movement, literally around the world. And of course, I think one very interesting concept, Ram, that you have done or built out is this whole Gandhian engineering, which is an Indian product for the world to understand how that has shaped up. But more than that, a number of contributions to India, been on several government Mashelkar committees, as they call it. It's become synonymous with science and innovation, and of course the recipient of the Padma Bhushan, among so many large awards. And we've circulated the CV and the bio and the background of such a wonderful, powerful gentleman that we have had the privilege of discussing, the future of India with today. And, Ram has been someone who has been part of this journey of India at 75 that CII took on back in 2007, when we were celebrating, what India had achieved in 60 years, but more importantly, what we could achieve in the next 15. Today, we are sitting in 2022. We've seen what has happened with the large visioning and the micro level of action that has been taken right at the grassroots level to several initiatives around policy, technology, the boldness for Indian industry to move forward has all resulted in the India that we have today. And maybe as we celebrate this and recognize how far we've come, it's also time for us to reflect on how we can strengthen many of the core pillars on which the future of this country will be built. And really to have this discussion, as I said, we are privileged to have you here with us, Ram, and thank you for joining us. As I said, personally to me and to many others in the country, you have been an inspiration, especially in this last 15-year journey when we first interacted. And I still remember with CK Prahlad, you had shared your vision of how India will shape up, and you've contributed personally and significantly to this. But, as you look at the next 25 years, what is it that excites you about India? What's your dream for India? What's your vision for India at 100?
Yes. First of all, thank you very much for your most gracious, most kind words about me and whatever little I have been able to do. Let's start with the vision of India at 100. Rajiv, I would like to talk about not just India at 100, but Bharat at 100. That's extremely important because we have challenges because of vast inequalities, deprivation, and so on and so forth. So we can't dream of India at 100 without thinking of Bharat. So I think that is where I will begin. The second is I go back to year 2000 when we had the Indian Science Congress in Pune. And I remember Atalji had come as a chief guest for opening up the Congress. We have a conglomerate of something like 5,000 scientists, Nobel laureates, and so on. And I had to give the presidential talk. And that presidential talk was about new Panchashil for the new millennium. And that new Panchashil was child-centered education, woman-centered family, human-centered development, knowledge-centered society, and innovation-centered India. And as you can see, from a child to woman to a human to the society to the nation, I had said at that time that this particular five mantras, so as to say, for India in year 2000, in that millennium that was beginning, will be valid for even 3000 and 4000, as you can quite clearly see. So I would like to base my comments on that. That's the first part. The second part is that my vision, if I may sort of summarize it in 7 points, I will use first Hindi and translate it into English, those words, basically. One needs India at 100 to be a nation which is Santulit, Susanskrit, Suvidya, Samruddha, Sushashit, Surakshit, and Swanandi. And I will explain each one of these. Now, when you say Santulit, it's all about balance. Because we'll have to have development without destruction. We'll have to have development without discrimination. We'll have to have development where everyone is taken along, so as to say, nobody is left behind. And it is also my dream when we talk about Santulit, the balance. I would like to see within 25 years, can we become a caste-free, a class-free nation, so as to say, because what is dividing us is that today. Whether it is in our everyday social behavior, whether it is in our politics, whether it is in our decision-making, that divides us. So can we have that santulan, the balance, so as to say. So the first point is santulan. The second is Susanskrit. I'm very proud of being Indian. I'm very proud of our culture. I'm very proud of our heritage. So at no point, those values, that culture should be lost. So that is the second point. The third point is Suvidya. Education is the key. Education is our future. But within that, I would like to see, for example, we have talked about right to education. But we have to move forward and say right way of education. We have to move forward and say right education, because that right education will change. I mean, just think about it. Somebody was saying on the other day that 70% of the school children in senior classes will end up in jobs which don't exist today. And we talked about, education which creates new jobs and so on and so forth. We don't know what those new jobs are. And therefore, the right education is which inculcates the qualities of dealing with complexity, because we are in a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, ambiguous. We have the pandemic, then came Ukraine, then will come X, Y, Z, and so on. So VUCA is the new norm. How do we sort of have our children deal with complexity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, cognitive flexibility, and co-creation, so as to say, not just learning by rote, but learning by doing, and not doing what the teacher said, but learning by creating and learning by co-creating, ability to co-create. So I think our education has to be holistic from that perspective. That is the third point. The fourth point is Samruddha Bharat. We should not get stuck in the middle income trap. We have to become a high income nation. 40 trillion is what we are talking about. Fine, maybe 50 trillion, but we have to have that aspiration. And there, it is not about just make in India, like assembled in India, but make in India as invent in India, so as to say. Otherwise, we can't. So that is. Then Sushasit, in terms of governance, I think we should become a kind of a model good governance in diverse aspect, which includes, protecting our laws, our constitution, our fundamental rights, the freedom to speak, freedom of action, and so on and so forth. Governance that is built around that, governance that protects democracy, finally, the democratic value. The next one is Surakshit, secure. And that security is both internal security as well as external security. For example, food security, health security, energy security, because we are now talking about green energy. We are talking about green hydrogen. And I had this Asia Economic Dialogue, the opening session with Mukesh Ambani, and he talked about 111, 1 kilogram of green hydrogen for $1 for 1 billion people. Basically, looks a fantastic dream. But then access of green energy to all is going to be important. In fact, he had a prediction that since we are dealing with the sun and the water, and that is in plentiful, you can create a green hydrogen with the current technologies at that level, and even export 500 billion. Can you just imagine from an energy importing country becoming energy exporting country? I see no reason why we cannot actually do that. As you know, I've been the chairman of his New Energy Council, and I see how those dreams are progressing in terms of creating wealth. So that is that. And the final one, my wish is Swanandi Bharat, happy India, so as to say, both peace internally as well as externally. And that will be, whatever be the population at that time, not smile on the selected few, but smile on all the billions. So just to summarize, Santulit, Susanskrit, Suvidya, Samruddha, Sushasit, Surakshit, and Swanandi. That's my India of at 100. I won't be there. I know I won't be there, but I like to see that.
No, I'm sure science and innovation and engineering will ensure you're there, and I'm sure you will be there to enjoy that day with us. And I think so beautifully put, right? All of this actually ultimately results in happy people in a happy country. I think, if we can get that level across, scale and masses here, I don't know what you think about, the gross happiness index that, Bhutan often talks about. And as a country, is that something that we should measure and really measure it in a manner which is, very strongly Indian? I don't know.
In fact, I can tell you that when I chaired the Goa Golden Jubilee Development Council and created a vision for 2035, and we had great people like Vijay Kelkar and Vijay Bhatkar and Anil Kakodkar and others as members of the committee. I remember creating a similar 7-point agenda for them. And Swanandi Goa, I said, and I talked about exactly what you said, gross happiness index. And by the way, as an aside, I might tell you something. I'd given the D.D. Kosambi Memorial talk in Goa. And I remember then it was followed by Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam and people, but I had the privilege of giving the first one. And I had at that time said that I'm not talking like a scientist, but I will love to come. I will love to sort of negotiate with the God that take away all my remaining years of my life, but give me one day when in 2047 I'll be able to come on the face of this earth and see my India. Who knows?
Yeah, of course, yes, no. And it goes so well with your innovation centered India, right? You talked of the role of women and everybody, but innovation creating happiness. I mean, it's an amazing formula. But really talking about that, and for us to really identify and for us to claim that position, of the global R&D hub of the world, as we build our capabilities and capacity as a country, how do you really evaluate or assess the current environment, right? When it comes to, research and development, the whole landscape in our country today, how do you envision it, the way it is today, how would you define?
Yeah. I think that's an excellent question. See, look, 2020 is considered as year of pandemic, right? I would consider 2020 as year of science, year of Indian science. Because when COVID hit us, we didn't know what is the nature of the virus at all. We didn't have diagnostics. We were importing them from China, if you remember. And many of them had to be returned. Millions of them had to be returned. We didn't have any therapeutics. We did not have any vaccines. We had nothing. And within no time, we turned the picture, basically. We had our own indigenous vaccine, Covaxin, for example. We had our own diagnostic kits, so as to say. The first one came from my lab in Pune within 6 weeks after the pandemic came, and then sort of others came. And They were all sort of affordable. Personal protection equipment, we were all importing from China. Within 6 months, we became exporting country, so as to say, and I can go on and on. So I think this would not have happened if we had not built a terrific science base over a period of time. And that was not built overnight. It took decades of investment and commitment by different political leaders and the society and industrial enterprises to move through that condition. So it gives us confidence. When I think the real tests are when you have adversity and then you are tested out. That's number one. Number two is that if you see India is rising, that's for sure. Okay. Now, if you look at some indicators like scientific research publications, I'm very happy to tell you that within the last decade, our rate of growth has been the highest in the world in terms of scientific research publications. It is around 10% as against China's, which is 7%, and US, which is 0.7%, so as to say. So that is very good. But we have a lower base, by the way, in comparison to the others. But I would say that's moving forward. Then the third point I would like to make is that India specializes in something and which leads the world. For example, I have talked about innovation, but more importantly, inclusive innovation. You mentioned about Gandhian engineering. And you remember in 2008, I've spoken about Gandhian engineering, which is our strength and which is our requirement. This was in Australia. And I explained Gandhian engineering in the following way. I said, Mahatma Gandhi had said that there is enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. That means your exhaustible resources, please use them carefully so that you can get more from less and keep it for more and more generations to come, your grandchildren and so on and so forth. And I'd also said that Gandhiji had said that the benefits of science must reach all poor, everyone, not some selected few. So that became more from less for more. And since you mentioned C.K. Prahlad, I must say that in 2010, my speech was in 2008, 2010, he and I wrote a paper in Harvard Business Review. It was called Innovation's Holy Grail, Getting More from Less for More. And that became a paper that is now ranked among the top 10 must-read papers. Why? And World Economic Forum had a session on that, just within 6 months, so as to say, on more from less for more. So India is terrific in doing more from less for more, of which affordable excellence is one of the things. We somehow or the other, we have those genes in us. I'm not talking about Jugaad, by the way. Jugaad is doing less and less for less. I'm talking about getting more from less. I'm talking about affordable excellence. Just to give you an example, in my mother's name, I have this Anjani Mashelkar Inclusive Innovation Award. This is the 12th year of the award, and it is given not for best practice, but the next practice, so as to say. I'm not a great believer in best practice, you follow others. And look at ECG, for example. What is the best practice? We go to the hospital, lay down, then the nurse comes, and then you have 12 leads put here and there, etc., and half an hour you get there. He created the next practice. The next practice is here. It is a portable ECG. 250,000 of these have been sold in 8 countries, by the way. Now, what does it do? Well, you put your 2 fingers on it for 15 seconds. And then here is a sensor. You put it above the heart, 15 seconds, 15 seconds. All right. And an accurate 12 lead medical grade ECG comes up in your smartphone if you have downloaded an app called Sankit. All right. Now, this has got all certificates from all around the world and so on. So this is affordable excellence. Why? Because this device costs only 4,000 rupees and cost of ECG per scan is just 5 rupees. Now you can imagine how transformative this is, basically. So if you have, for example, in a village, an old woman gets pain, all right, and she doesn't have to be put in a bullock cart or a motorbike or a jeep and taken several kilometers. Right from there, if the connectivity is there, her ECG can go to the best expert anywhere. Similarly, eye breast, which is $1 breast cancer test, which is going to 25 countries now, and so on and so forth. So innovations of this kind, inclusive innovation, as I call it, affordable excellence, India is a master. So when it comes to our strengths, I would say these are our strengths. And most importantly, as you know, we are used to denial-driven innovation. Supercomputers were not made. I was member of Science Advisory Committee to the Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi's time. And that time he asked us, what are we good at? We must be good at something. And we said this, and then what do we do with this? And that is where supercomputer mission was called. And we created our own firm supercomputer because it was denied by US. Similarly, cryogenic engine, it was derived. So each time it has been derived, we have said, thank you very much. Whether it is space, whether it is defense, whether it is out of English. I would say, if you look at the current scenario, and Mars orbiter mission, for example, Mangalyaan, you saw how we did it at 1/10 of the cost, getting more from less for more, basically. I would say these are our strong. Our weaknesses, if you ask me, still continue to be in intellectual property rights. For example, we have still not understood the value in terms of competitive advantage of that. We have this translational research from mind to marketplace or ideas to impact, that particular journey, the kind of ecosystem, we have still not sort of perfected it. So these are work in progress, I would say. But on the whole, I would say this is my own judgment with regard to the current state.
No, I think very, very well put, with very good examples, right? As what you rightly said, I think, as human beings, you should be able to create anything you can imagine. And I think the world is there. And the other way around too, right? If you can't imagine it, you can't create it. And I think that's where, visionary leadership will come from for the future. And, what you've articulated truly exemplifies that, Ram. And I think, as we really look and you talk to some of the weaknesses, what are there, but, keeping that aside, if we really want to build that culture of R&D, even today, if you look at Indian industry, doesn't invest as much in R&D as it should, or even compared to global counterparts, right? I think while we are great at creating affordable, excellence, as you said, and inclusive innovation, right? I think, are we being bold enough? Are we taking enough risk, as a country? Can we really use this strong foundation to do a lot more over the next 25 years? And if so, really, and if we were to really prioritize, like maybe are there 3 things, that we should be focused on to create this strong R&D culture, in India as we move forward?
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. I would put it this way. I think the first thing is about investment, so as to say, because although we are a poor country, education and health, we have to invest the most, but also research is something where we cannot. Now, my challenge there, I will tell you, because I give a lot of good news. I'm a traveling salesman for India, but there are challenges. One of the challenge and one of my regrets has been that if you look at the investment in R&D that India has made, 1998, it was 0.7%. Today, it is 0.7%. Rest of the countries have gone forward. As you can see, China is almost 2.5%, and they are 5 times richer than us. So you can see the kind of investment they are basically making. Now, what has happened is that there has been a commitment from the governments. I can tell you, because I have been member of Science Advisory Committee to the Prime Minister for almost 30 years, by the way, right from Rajiv Gandhi's time. And I remember one meeting in 1989 in December that he had taken at 7 Racecourse Road, and he said we should raise investment from 0.7% to 2%. And I remember T.N. Session, then Cabinet Secretary, he suddenly said, you know what? He says, sir, we don't have money. Rajiv at that time said, Sessionji, science, technology, innovation is so important. We'll set aside 2% and the rest the country can. That was his commitment. He's gone. After that, we had Atalji. Year 2000, when I was Indian Science Congress president, he made a statement. I'm committed to 2%. 2011, I remember Dr. Manmohan Singh, I was there in the Science Congress. He made a commitment, 2%. And then our current Prime Minister, Honorable Narendra Modi ji made a very sincere commitment in 2015, 2%, 2%, 2%, 2%. Everybody else. It has not happened. Why is it remain 0.7%? And you put your finger on it. The essence is that of industry. Because if you see all over the world, approximately 70% comes from industry and 30% from government. Here it is exactly the reverse. Government spends 70%, but industry spends 30%. So how do you incentivize and propel our industry to sort of do that? And if you exclude some sectors like health sector, pharma, for example, otherwise the vaccine would not have come and so on, or some part of auto, and in the digital world, a few innovations, we don't see that. So I think that I would like to see sort of rise, that there is no question about. The second is the risk part. Again, I'm picking up from you. In fact, you have given all the answers of the questions you are asking. See, risk taking is extremely important because we have been followers, then we became fast followers. And the idea is not just leapfrogging, but pole vaulting. This is my book, Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting. Where we talk about high aspirations and going ahead of the world and taking leadership. So not follower or fast follower, but a leader and a pole vaulter, so as to say, to new heights. Okay. Now, I remember that when I was the DG of CSIR, I created what is called as the New Millennium Indian Technology Leadership Initiative. Leadership was the key. Now, the issue is when you want to take leadership, you are doing something others have not done. You are not copying. And therefore, there is a risk. And therefore, you are likely to fail. So, I remember at that time, it was Mr. Yashwant Sinha who was the finance minister, I remember. And he had a dialogue with me, what can be done? And I said, let us create this initiative. And he approved it instantaneously. The model there was very interesting. It was a public-private partnership. Private sector, can you believe it? I had said 0% interest, softest loan, and to be returned only if they are successful. What does that mean? It was not venture capital, it was adventure capital. And I had said public-private partnership where public institutions will join together and together they will do. By the time I left, there were more than 100 private sector companies and 250 institutions working together. Okay. Now, we took risks at that time because, as you know, we had always worked where markets were certain and technology was certain. Markets were certain because people were already consuming. Technology was certain because all that we had to do, reverse engineer and copy that, and we could get. We moved the ball into different quadrants. You know what was that? Where markets were uncertain and technology was uncertain. Today, you talk about green hydrogen. Today, you talk about fuel cell. 2002, when there were no markets and technology were not known, we started a program. Today, KPIT Technologies, along with National Chemical Laboratory, Sikri Karai Kudi, and others, have created our own fuel cells, which are ahead of the rest of the world. 400 kilowatt hour, as against, dollars per kilowatt hour, 400, as against 1,000, which is the best in the world. And as we speak, this was launched on 16 December last year. The vehicle is sort of doing mileage for sort of testing. Our own, which is ahead of the rest of the world. Because we took risks. So I think the second point, the first point is investment. Second point is embracing sort of risk. And the third one is debureaucratization. Prime Minister after Prime Minister has talked about debureaucratization. In year 2000, Atalji said that. 2011, again, Dr. Manmohan Singh said that. In fact, the most evocative talk was given by our Honorable current Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji. I remember attending that Mumbai, and he said that the scientists should not be left to find out the mysteries of bureaucracy. They should find out the mysteries of science. I mean, there's a powerful statement. Despite all that, good intentions, the bureaucratization has increased, centralization has increased, and so on and so forth. So you ask me what are the three things, my wish list. First is investment. Second is risk-taking, kind of funding with a public-private partnership. And third is debureaucratization.
No, I think very well prioritized and very, very clear articulation, Ram. I think in all of these three, if they work together, right, I think you're absolutely right. We can definitely create that culture. And you're so right, when it comes to industry. And, as I said, I also come from a third generation business. We've had traditional manufacturing for decades, right? We're partners with the Aditya Birla Group in Thailand and others. And for the initial years of my journey in business, I tried to innovate within, right? I try to innovate within organizations until, you realize that there are so many challenges, which are not only external, but also internal, right? From industry, it's the people, the mindsets, and sometimes it's harder, even after putting a lot of money to get those desirable outcomes, even if they fail, right? And you still feel that you've fallen short of the effort. Of course, what we did was completely draw a line, take absolutely new young people and get into businesses which are being done for the first time out of India for the world. And I think your point of emerging technologies, what you talked of, you have an uncertain geography, an uncertain technology, but really taking that at scale out of India for the world probably could be, the big ambition and the vision, right, that we should all aspire for. And
Raju, it is making in India for the world, like our Prime Minister said, like this device now in 8 countries. All right. So, and there are other innovations which have gone to even 25 countries. Make in India for the world. It is possible, provided it is affordable excellence meeting those qualities. Then people will go for it. That is the first part. Last part, if I may just add, because this cannot be put in an agenda, because this is investment, taking risk and debureaucratization, is all government and industry and so on. But there is something else that, it has to be talent, technology and trust. We have all the talent in the world. We have the technology. The trust part of it is very important. I'll give an example just to illustrate. Naveen Khanna, one of the award winners in 12 years of Anjani Mashelkar, was Dr. Naveen Khanna from ICGV. What did he do? He created a dengue diagnostic test, which can within 15 minutes tell you whether you have dengue or not 1 or 2 days. Okay. And at what stage it is. US FDA certified, US patents, everything done. Nobody will take it. Why? Because we were importing them from US, from Australia, and from South Korea. Then came the pandemic. So kids were getting exhausted very rapidly. We went to these countries. 2 of them said we can't deliver in the time span that you are allocating. South Korea said we will. As luck would have it, they loaded it on the wrong ship, which went to Africa. So we were with no kids. And there was no other option but to go for Naveen Khanna. Okay. That time, his sort of market share was 0%. Today, it is 80%. But if the ship had come, it would be still 0%. That trust, that when I say take risk, this is also a risk that you take. All right. So we have to trust our youth and sort of basically take those. This is a part of it, talent, technology, and trust.
And the youth has that hunger, that necessity is the power of innovation. That is there. I mean, I was at a convocation recently, and of course, you go to so many. I asked people to put up their hands, how many of them would want to be job creators, versus, seeking jobs. 70% plus, Ram must have put up their hand. They have that risk appetite. They have that entrepreneurial energy. What you said, we have to just trust the young people, back them with capital, back them with an ecosystem. I'm sure we started the journey as about accelerating and taking those already well, fit, companies now to larger global scale. Like today, Naveen, after he's got 80% of India, now how do we, get him to have a vision to go and fight with those same countries which we were importing for and do it at a much more efficient and a better scale, right? I think that's the shift probably India 100 will see a lot more of, and I think this is a great point, right? It really talks both of entrepreneurial energy, but somewhere, there's this term called scientific tempo, which I don't know whether I know it exists, but how do we kind of encourage it, right? How do we enable it to unlock to its true potential, in a country like India?
No, that's an extraordinary question. It's extremely important. because we can't become a developed nation until there is a scientific temper, so as to say. If you just see, we had Mars orbiter mission, I mentioned, Mangalyaan, all right? And we were the nation who became successful for the first time. We did it at 1/10. All Indians are proud. Mangalyaan was moving around Mangal. But इस लड़की को मंगल है, उसके लिए उसकी शादी नहीं होती है. Because she has Mangal, she can't marry. That is no scientific temper. If you remember Lord Ganesha drinking milk, there were queues. And interestingly, the longest queues were in London, by the way. So, or people saying because there is a cow slaughter, there are earthquakes, all sorts of. So I think we have to get away with it. I think if we remember, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru had coined the word scientific temper in 1946, actually. And if you see the 1958 science policy resolution, it has statement on scientific temper. And in fact, we were the first nation, by the way, in 1976. If you look at the fifth, in the fifth parliament, the 42nd amendment, 51AH, I have the number here. It says specifically, and I will read out, it says, it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to develop scientific temper, humanism, and spirit of inquiry. So we have said that, and even in the science, technology, innovation policy draft, I have seen the one that is going to be sort of brought out. There is a sort of, so there is the intent, but at a societal level, we have to sort of make change. And why is it important? Because in scientific temper, you use the principles that are embodied in scientific method. That means application of logic, discussion, argument. There is an element of fairness, element of sort of equality, element of democratic view, and you can actually express contrasting views, all right, which may not conform with the establishment. So that is fundamental. Freedom of thought, freedom of action, when we talk about, that is all embedded in scientific temper. Now you will ask, yeah, this is a challenge, what can we do? In fact, I have written a major paper on scientific temper, which appears on my website, www.mashelkar.com. But I will not go into detail for want of time, but I will say I have made 10 points, out of which 5 are very important. What are those 5? What are the dramatic changes we need to make? The first one is from censorship to freedom of expression. The second is from obedience to openness. You know, that yes sir culture, etc., that we have, that to obedience. The third is science as a subject to science as a way of life. It should not be just learned as a separate subject in isolation. The fourth is media responsibility. Rather than sensationalization, to sensible science journalism. That's what we need. And fifth is, there is what is called as a citizen science movement. So every citizen become a scientist in some way. Exploration, it could be the skies, it could be so the botanical wonders, these, that, and the other, etc. So the civil society is positive. I would say this will be my 5-point agenda as far as scientific temper is concerned.
Yeah, no, I think again, very, very important, shifts that need to happen at a societal level, right? And these are always hard to make at a country level. Sometimes it takes decades and generations for these switches to happen. But definitely directionally, I think if we aspire and continue to move that, we'll see more examples that will, probably strengthen that move. And probably that's how, we will get there. Ram, out of all things we've spoken a lot of different aspects for India's global leadership, coming up. You're the more from less for more, really kind of stands out. You've written for value for money and for many, very much similar, kind of concepts that you have, talked about, where we have to find solutions for literally, challenges that seem to have impossible solutions, right? I mean, really something that to be solved, right? I mean, and I know you've developed this philosophy, you've developed an approach, a framework, so to say, on addressing big challenges, right? I mean, I think throughout your life, you probably, looked at solutions in deep challenges. So little insight on, for us as a country, right? What's that core to that approach? Is there something that we need to constantly, be guided by a thought, or we need to continue to think of as we move, on this journey of excellence?
Yeah, I think it is like this. One has to think of the future. We talk too much about the past. Very frankly, we have to look at the future because that is where we are going to spend the rest of our life. Okay. And we have to run faster than the others. So competitive India is critical. Inclusive India is critical. And therefore, you require innovation, compassion, and passion, all three sort of put together. You have to have speed, scale, and sustainability, so as to say, because we don't have time on our disposal. And that is, I would like to see what has happened in the last decade becoming the spirit for us. See, I talked about leapfrogging to pole vaulting. This came out of our conversation with Mukesh. All right. And he loved it, and he created a program called Beyonders. Just 30 young people who can make impossible possible, think beyond the rims of possibility. And we did pole vaulting. What was that pole vaulting? In 2007, February, we moved from 156th position in mobile data transmission and usage to not leapfrog to 100, pole vault to number 1, and we are number 1, right? So that is the spirit. Now, when he talks about 111, green energy, basically, we are talking about pole vaulting ahead of the rest of the world. Such targets have not been set by anybody. If you look at other things that we have done, digital payment, we are the sort of biggest and the fastest in the world to have sort of done that. You look at the financial inclusion, thanks to JAM that we did, Jan Dhan Yojana, Aadhaar, and mobile. It was a combination of technological innovation, system delivery innovation, policy innovation, etc. We did that. And that is the fastest. In fact, we have got a Guinness Book of Record, and you have seen the benefits of that in terms of COVID and payments and so on and so forth. Look at light emitting diodes, for example. India has a world record now. Within 7 years, we moved from 0.2% penetration in the market to 88%. How did that happen? And I had heard Mr. Piyush Goyal talk about it when I was chairing the Earth Care Awards, and there was a function. And we did it by demand aggregation, so that the cost of a 9W lamp was brought down from $7 to $1. Okay? LEDs, because they are very important for reducing the carbon footprint, not the fluorescent light, but LEDs. We did that. We were the fastest. Similarly, if you see startups that you talked about, until 2016-17, we had one unicorn. One unicorn, as you know, is $1 billion market cap per year. In 2021, we had one unicorn per week, almost. I'm saying almost. As a scientist, I should not be bluffing, because we did 42, not 52 weeks. All right, but it is almost that. Can you just say this is pole vaulting? All right. So that is the point I'm trying to make. In moving forward in the next 25 years, we can't be walking, we can't be running, we can't be leading and leapfrogging, but pole vaulting. I think that should be our aspirational sort of work.
And a lot of catch up also to do for, to really justify our pole vaulting as well, and with the size of scale of population and the ambition that we have. One thing stands out in every conversation, that I've had with about India at 100, or, we've engaged in, is that the aspirations of the people of India for India are really, up there, right? I think everybody, we're a country that lives on hope, that lives on, strong aspirations. And I think it is up to, many of us to really put together the framework, that will enable this country, to have that. And that won't happen without the participation of everyone. And more importantly, the young people, right? And I think in the world, we have about 700 million people which are who are under the age of 25, I think approximately in India, 6 to 50, which is nearly 1 in 10 people in the world is an Indian under the age of 25.
Yeah, yeah.
If you had to give one message to them, that will resonate with them because they are the ones who are going to create this next India at 100 over the next 25 years. Really, what's that powerful message of yours to that generation?
I'll give. We call these 5 Mashelkar mantras. Okay. And they are based all on reading my book of life, whatever I have had the journey. And those 5 Mashelkar mantras I'll give very quickly. The first is, as you said, aspirations are of possibilities. So keep them high. If you aim at Everest, at least you will reach Kanchenjunga. But if you aim at Kanchenjunga, you might not even go to Hanuman Tekri. And I'm very happy to say on this count that our young have the aspiration. Let me tell you how. I was talking to some young people and I said, I'm very proud of India's educational system, by the way. I've been myself a product of that all through and through, right from a municipal school to my PhD. So I said, look at, Satya Nadella, he's the chief of CEO of Microsoft, and so on, so forth. Sundar Pichai, Google, and so on. One young person got up and said, sir, you got it all wrong. I said, why? He said, your aspiration, your generation was always to go to US somehow. Next generation, go to US and get a great job, like in Microsoft. Third generation, not only go there, but become Microsoft CEO, not ours. We want to create our own Microsoft, our own Google here. That is the spirit that they have. So first is aspiration, keeping them high. The second message is hard work. I want to particularly tell the young generation, like instant coffee, there's no instant success. I myself work 24/7, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year, and will continue to do so till the last day of my life. My message to them is work hard in silence. Let success make all the noise. Don't start making noise in the week. My third lesson will be purpose, perseverance, and passion matters. Perseverance. It is always too early to give up. Winners never quit, quitters never win. And you have to look at fail because you will fail in life. FAIL, first attempt in learning. As long as you learn from it. Your best guru is your last mistake, as long as you learn. That is my fourth. Fifth is that you keep on knocking on the doors. They don't open. Create your own doors. You might say, I don't understand. What is it? I'll tell you. 1976, when I came back to National Chemical Laboratory, terrible conditions, actually. We were a poor country, no foreign exchange. I wanted a equipment, Weizenberg reorganizer. It will take me about 2 years. Digital clearance not manufactured in India, certificate and all that. So that door was not opening because I would have set up rheology group. I said, what is the equipment God has given me? This. And I shifted to modeling and simulation, which uses only this. Can you believe it's 77 I started the work. In 82, I got the Bhatnagar Prize, which is the highest science prize for people under 12. But had I just waited there, I would not, for that door to open after 2 years would not have happened. So that is my message to them. And the last one, there is no limit to human endurance, to human achievement, to human imagination. Just let me end by saying that Professor Sena Rao, who is the Bharat Ratna and accepting Nobel Prize, he has got everything, the greatest scientist. He has been my guru and a mentor. So I became fellow of Royal Society, FRS. In 360 years, there have been only 3 engineering scientists from India who have become one. And you sign in the same book that Newton has signed, by the way. This is considered as the highest after Nobel Prize. I phoned up Professor Rao. You know what was his response? Not bad. So I got very disappointed. Then I got some other. Then I got some. Then finally I would be among the top 3, top 7. Then there was one fellowship I got, US National Academy of Inventors. I was the first Indian from India. So I said, at least now he's there. So I again called him excitedly. Not bad. Then I said, sir, what do I have to do to impress you? So what he said, I like to leave as a message for the young people. What he said was interesting. He said, Mashelkar, you are climbing on a ladder of excellence, which has no limits. accepting the limit that you put on. So if you translate it, it means no matter what you achieve, you have to say my best is yet to come. And what they should do is, whether you are 18 or 80, every day morning when you get up, you have to say my best is yet to come. Maybe today is the day it will come, and keep on sort of doing it, and not just for yourself, for the society, my best for the society, for the nation. And you can imagine, if billion plus Indians do it, where will this nation be? These are my 5 Mashelkar mantras.
That's what the one voice that will resonate, right? My best is yet to come. 1.4 billion Indians saying that and actually taking a pledge to live by that ideology. And I think that should be more than enough to really unlock the future of a beautiful Bharat, and where you started, that the Bharat at 100 is a Bharat that each of us will own and, be a part of and proud of. So, I mean, we had 45 minutes, I've overshot your time, but just such a wonderful, enriching, enlightening conversation. And I'm sure a lot of messages there for different stakeholders in society, in India and around the world to take back, to see how they can shape their future, and not only of their nation and family, but really each individual, starts living to the best of their potential, and we'll have a lovely world. So again, thank you. Thank you so much, Ram, for spending the time, being here with us. There are a few questions that people have put up, and we will email that to you and probably get some answers from you since we don't have time. But again, thank you so much for being here and for sharing this lovely insight.
Thank you very much. My privilege and pleasure. Thank you.